Hey guys, welcome back to the Ground Up. Today we're going to be talking about enneagram versus MBTI. Okay, so there is a sort of misconception often where people think that if you know MBTI type of a person, that you know the motivation. But we're going to debunk that today. So first off, I want to start off by telling you what MBTI is if you don't already know. MBTI is based off of a test that Myers-Briggs came up with. I'm not getting into all that stuff because that's not what I'm here to talk about, but 16 personalities, there's different types. There's 16. It includes things like introversion, extroversion, and then intuition and sensory, thinking and feeling, and then perceiving and judging. And so what these are you have 4 different letters that combine together to make your personality type. Now these 4 letters are really just an abbreviation, and this abbreviation has underlying meaning to it. So for, let's say like my type, I'm an ENTP, which stands for extroverted, intuitive, thinking, and then perceiving. Well, you may be asking, well, what does that mean exactly? Well, an ENTP, this is a person that's known to be a visionary or an inventor. And what the extroversion and intuition is telling you is sort of how I am perceived to interact with the world. Now, the underlying reality of that is there's more depth to it. This actually comes originally from the work of Carl Jung. He didn't come up with MBTI, he came up with the cognitive functions. We all have different parts of our brains that we use over the other. And you could say society is sort of like a beehive. It's a hive to where everybody has different roles. Well, for me, some of my main cognitive functions are extroverted intuition, and then introverted thinking, and then extroverted feeling, last, introverted sensing. These different cognitive functions come together to make what my personality type is. The strongest being the first that I've spoken about, and then the weakest being the last. So we have stronger functions and weaker functions. Okay, so for me, my strongest function would be extroverted intuition, which is used to gather different patterns outside in reality. The functions are basically like tools. So what we're talking about when we're talking about MBTI, we're talking about tools that you have a predisposition towards. It's something that I wouldn't say that I know for a fact that we're born with them, but it's not. It's more so that this is your personality of pretty much who you come as, right? That's nature. And then when we talk about enneagram is nurture. There are 9 different enneagram types, and each of these types, you could say, hold the key to understanding a person's motivational factor, because the motivation is there's a need that they had to meet, or they felt they had to meet through growth, through life. And so they start to develop these traits that help them towards their motivation, their goal, the thing that they see fit as being something they need in order to survive. For example, my enneagram type is a type 8, also known as the challenger. Motivational factor comes from a place of wanting to not feel weak, wanting to feel as if I can take care of myself and not depend on anybody, as well as push back against anything opposing, really. And it's always seeking power. So enneagram, like I said before, is nurture, and what it covers is your motivation, and that's going to determine what you're going to do with the tools that you have. The tools being your cognitive functions. MBTI cognitive functions, they go together in their own little category. Enneagram goes into its own category, but them combined can tell you even more so about a person. And so, as I said before about addressing the misconceptions, there tends to be trends on when it comes to which enneagram type MBTI type would have. So for my MBTI type, ENTP, or also known as the visionary, it's common for us to be Enneagram 7s. However, you do have some cases to where they're Enneagram 8s and others as well. Enneagram 7s are known to be sort of aloof, and they like to be free-spirited. They like to not be held down. They seek getting rid of what is uncomfortable by seeking what is comfortable, seeking what is good and fun. And this usually is what is seen as being ENTP. That's not the case. If you're ENTP, that's solely what your tools are. And so for me, I'm an ENTP, but I'm ENTP 8. So my goal is to seek power with the tools that I have of an ENTP. An example of a person that's also an ENTP 8 wing 7 in history would be somebody like, you could take Fidel Castro. He's one. If you look at the personality database, he's an ENTP 8 wing 7. And then somebody like from fiction would be, I believe his name is Eric from Ex Machina, the scientist guy, or whatever his name is. So yeah, there's differences. And this is something that sort of gets mixed up a lot, because people will think that maybe if you're this personality, if you're MBTI type like this, then you're gonna behave in these ways. You're not gonna know necessarily. I mean, there's a higher probability because of this. So even though the outside factors determine your Enneagram, you can still have your tools that you use affect also your Enneagram. And if there is an environment that is sort of, let's say there's a neutral environment and you have your tools, well, you're going to interact with your environment in a certain way. And if this neutral ground is going to return what you reciprocate, then it's going to be sort of, your tools will affect your environment, thus your environment affecting you. But if your environment, no environment is neutral. So there may be a high probability of you being one type of Enneagram because you're a certain MBTI type. That's not always the case, because there's different environments and there could be some different extremes that, will influence your Enneagram type, even though you have the certain tools that you have. So yeah, I hope this helps for you guys to understand the difference. If you have any questions, please let me know. I really try to make sure I cover as much as possible. Like, I'm really trying to think of any other thing that I could tell you about this. It's a new thing for a lot of people, but I hope more people get into it. It's really interesting and it helps to understand things, because, you could be interacting with people and just anybody, like your family, your friends, you may have some issues with them. You may not get along as well. And this helps to understand where they're coming from. Both on two different spectrums, right? You have the nature versus the nurture. MBTI, nature, versus Enneagram, nurture. Leave your comments down below and tell me what you guys think. If you got anything, if you learned anything from this, or you just, if you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and stay safe.